Take a look at your dinner plate. Whether you eat beef, chicken, pork, or lamb, almost every single terrestrial animal humans consume shares one distinct biological trait. They are herbivores. We eat cows that eat grass, chickens that eat grain, and pigs that eat roots and plants. But why don't you see lion burgers on restaurant menus? Why isn't wolf steak a staple at your local grocery store? Or eagle breast? Humans are apex omnivores. We have mastered hunting, farming, and processing food at a global scale, yet across almost every human culture in history, carnivores have been off the menu except in times of extreme famine or survival. Is it just a cultural taboo? Or is there something deeper encoded into our biology, economics, and ecology that makes eating predator meat a terrible idea? As it turns out, the reason we don't eat predators comes down to basic math, dangerous biology, and a few deadly risks lurking inside the food chain. Let's break down why eating predators is inefficient, dangerous, and downright gross. To understand why we don't farm or hunt predators for food, we have to start with physics and ecology, specifically something called trophic levels and the 10% rule of energy transfer. Every living organism needs energy to survive. The sun produces solar energy, which plants convert into biomass through photosynthesis. Plants are at trophic level 1. A herbivore, like a cow or a deer, eats those plants. That's trophic level 2. Now here's the crucial catch. Organisms lose roughly 90% of their energy just by living. They burn it through movement, body heat, digestion, and staying alive. Only about 10% of the energy consumed gets converted into actual meat and body mass. Let's do the math. To grow 100 pounds of beef, a cow needs to eat roughly 1,000 pounds of grain and grass. That's a 10-to-1 ratio. It takes work, but grass and grain grow abundant and cheap. Now imagine trying to farm a predator, say a lion or a wolf. To produce 100 pounds of lion meat, that lion needs to eat 1,000 pounds of meat from primary herbivores. But to produce that 1,000 pounds of herbivore meat, those animals had to consume 10,000 pounds of plants. Farming a carnivore requires 10 times more land, 10 times more feed, and exponentially more resources than farming a herbivore. From an economic and agricultural standpoint, farming predators for food is complete financial suicide. You are wasting 99% of all energy before the food even reaches your plate. Even if we ignored the math and decided to hunt wild predators instead, we would run into a far more dangerous problem: biomagnification. In nature, environments contain trace amounts of heavy metals, industrial pollutants, pesticides, and toxins like mercury, lead, and arsenic. Plants absorb tiny amounts of these toxins. Herbivores eat thousands of plants, concentrating those toxins in their tissue. When a predator spends its entire life eating hundreds of herbivores, it acts like a biological sponge, absorbing and concentrating all the toxins from every single animal it ate. By the time you get to the top of the food chain, apex predators are concentrated cocktails of environmental poisons. A famous real-world example of this occurred during early Arctic expeditions. Explorers who ran out of food resorted to hunting polar bears. While bear meat is edible, eating a polar bear's liver can be lethal to humans. Why? Because polar bears consume vast amounts of seal fat, storing massive quantities of vitamin A in their livers. A single gram of polar bear liver contains enough vitamin A to cause severe poisoning, known as hypervitaminosis A. Symptoms include peeling skin, liver failure, brain swelling, and death. Predators don't just concentrate energy, they concentrate lethal hazards. Toxins aren't the only biological hazard hiding inside predator meat. Predators are primary hosts for some of the most gruesome parasites on the planet. Because carnivores feed on raw, wild animal flesh, they routinely ingest parasites which thrive in their muscles and organs. One of the most dangerous is Trichinella, a microscopic roundworm. When humans eat undercooked meat infected with Trichinella, the larvae hatch in the intestines, enter the bloodstream, and burrow directly into human muscle tissue and organs, causing trichinosis, muscle damage, heart complications, and sometimes death. While pigs can carry parasites, which is why pork was historically well cooked, wild carnivores like bears, cougars, and wolves carry them at astronomically higher rates. In fact, game wardens and biologists warn hunters today that nearly all wild black bears and mountain lions carry parasites. Unlike domestic livestock, which are wormed and raised in clean environments, eating wild predator meat without cooking it to incinerating temperatures is an extreme health gamble. Let's set aside economics, toxins, and parasites for a moment. What if we somehow raised a clean, safe predator? How would it actually taste? The short answer, probably terrible. What makes meat delicious to human palates is a combination of intramuscular fat, marbling, low muscle stress, and a diet rich in carbohydrates and greens. Herbivores spend their days grazing calmly, building up fat stores and tender muscle. Predators, on the other hand, they spend their entire lives sprinting, fighting, and starving between kills. Their muscles are dense, lean, stringy, and packed with high levels of myoglobin and connective tissue. Furthermore, a carnivore's diet consists entirely of protein and fat. Digesting high amounts of protein produces large quantities of ammonia and urea as metabolic waste. Because of this, meat from animals like wolves, foxes, or big cats is notorious for having a sharp, foul, highly acidic, and bitter taste, often described by hunters as smelling like concentrated urine or rotting garbage. Simply put, predator meat lacks fat, lacks tenderness, and tastes awful compared to a farm-raised herbivore. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, wait a second, don't we eat some predators? And you'd be right. There are a few major exceptions to this rule, most notably in the ocean. Tuna, salmon, trout, cod, and sharks are all predatory carnivores that eat smaller fish. Why do we eat them? Because aquatic ecosystems function differently than land ecosystems. Marine food webs are far more abundant and scalable, making fish harvesting viable. However, the biomagnification rule still applies, which is why health agencies warn against eating too much apex predator fish like swordfish or shark due to high mercury levels. On land, humans occasionally eat reptiles like alligator or snake, or omnivores like bear. But notice that alligators are cold-blooded reptiles with low metabolic costs, and bears are heavily omnivorous, eating berries, nuts, and fish rather than pure mammal meat. So, why do we never eat predator meat? Because basic ecological energy loss makes it impossible to farm efficiently. Biological magnification concentrates lethal toxins. Wild carnivores are crawling with parasites, and the meat itself tastes tough and foul. Humanity didn't settle on cows, chickens, and pigs by accident. We chose the safest, tastiest, and most sustainable energy converters nature had to offer. If you enjoyed discovering the science behind what's on your plate, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell for more deep dives into science and history. What's the strangest food you've ever tried? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching and see you next time.